How's it? I'm Alex McCauley.
Matt Max Fosberg.
And this is Excuse the Intermission, a discussion show surrounding movies. Today, Max and I have returned to talk about some current events, some box office news, partnership announcements, and of course, Marvel and who they've poached next to be in their big blockbuster movies. We also want to do a recap of some of the films we missed from earlier this year in 2026. So a packed show. We're excited to have you with us. It all gets started on the other side of this break. This episode is presented in partnership with the Gig Harbor Film Festival. Calling all movie lovers, the Gig Harbor Film Festival returns September 24th through the 27th at the Galaxy Theaters in Uptown Gig Harbor for 4 incredible days celebrating independent filmmaking.
The festival kicks off opening night with the award-winning documentary, The Big Cheese, followed by an exclusive Q&A featuring Seattle cheesemonger Courtney Johnson and the film's editor Nick Weiss Richmond.
This year's festival features 87 independent films, including U.S. and world premieres, locally produced films, and curated short programs. You'll also have the chance to meet more than 60 filmmaker teams, attend Q&As from the filmmakers, workshops led by industry professionals, special events, parties, and the popular festival favorite screening to close out the weekend.
Festival passes start at $50 and include admission to every film screening, with VIP options available for exclusive events and priority seating.
To purchase passes and learn more, please visit gigharborfilm.org. Join us this September and experience why the Gig Harbor Film Festival continues to be recognized as one of the top reviewed film festivals in the world.
Hey,
all right, we're back.
Live ad reads.
The folks who listen on Spotify and Apple, they'll never know the adventures of live podcasting.
The difference.
I'll tell you what, I've kind of gave a little insider baseball knowledge, showed a few people how the sausage is made when it comes to the Explorer Corner podcast that I've been doing this summer. The audiobook for The Magician's Nephew, which I will get to actually at the end of this episode. But those have been so funny, man. C.S. Lewis, he is was a psycho in the way that he wrote, just run on sentence after run on sentence. So some of these like 13-minute, 15-minute episodes that people have been listening to for the audiobook, they've taken my partner and I like 45 minutes to get through as we've been doing this over the summer. So yeah, the peek behind the curtain is real when it comes to once people finally get to see, oh, this is how you record a podcast. It's not just we're not all Clint Eastwood. We can't do it all in one take.
That's lunch.
I wish, man. All right. So we're back within like a week's time. I'm proud of us.
Yeah.
We could not be more thrilled at all of the engagement, the views, the responses that we saw from our episode last week about the Odyssey. A lot of interaction on YouTube, good download number. So it was really fun. We felt missed. It's good to felt needed and wanted. And so I was happy. Max and I were happy to be back, but we were even happier to see that folks tuned in and took, I think, what we had to say kind of to heart. I feel like The Odyssey is one of those polarizing films where it's hard not to walk out of that movie and be impressed by the grandeur and the scale of everything. But then it is really one of those films that once you do start thinking more critically about it, I think that's really where the true discourse lies, not just in the production.
Oh, yeah. I think, it's interesting because it's going to be celebrated for the whole year, right? Like it's going to be gigantic at the Oscars and,
double-digit nominations.
Yeah, it could be I think this has happened only once before, but if it goes on to win Best Picture and Best Director, that's 2 in a row for Christopher Nolan.
Right.
Because last year was Oppenheimer.
Well, a couple years ago, but the last film he released did
the
same
thing. That's what I meant. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting as it continues on. I know that like I believe is it Emily Watson came out, who is like the person who has most recently translated the Homer poem, and who I think Chris Nolan kind of worked off her translation of the poem, came out and just a total takedown of the film.
Mm,
I don't know if you read any of that.
mm.
Now, I think some of it is a little personal because she also
Kinda
mentions
defensive, maybe.
that she wasn't invited to premieres or whatnot. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I push back a little bit when people try to say that something isn't accurate to the poem, because I don't know. I don't know if is anyone other than Emily Watson a Homer, uh, expert, Homerian expert. Um, I know we all read it in school 25 years ago, but it, interesting. It'll be interesting to see the life of this film, and also how it will play at home. I'm very excited to revisit it on the couch and
Yeah.
see what, either if there's something new I glean from it, or if or if its lasting power was really in the moment on the big screen.
Yeah, just going back to the one point you made there. It's tough with historical epics because for those who are well educated in the subject matter, whatever the text might be, it's not like a story of this magnitude can have any real stakes, and that's such a catch 22. It's such a pitfall. If you know the story, then there really is no suspense on whether or
Mm.
not Odysseus is going to make it back, or even to go back to his previous film Oppenheimer. Like, we kind of joked about this when the movie came out. The bomb, they make the bomb, okay? um but so then it's all in the process and the recipe of how you get to that final dish. And I think what made Oppenheimer so successful was how Nolan was able to make that film, which was just a bunch of guys standing around in rooms talking, feel so suspenseful.
Yeah.
Whereas I think there were more challenges to this story to um sustain that level of suspense over the course of nearly 3 hours. So we'll see, because I do think when people watch it at home, they won't just watch it all in one sitting. It'll be something that gets paused and you take a break
Mm.
and finish it the next day, or you do stop and you cook and you visit with your family and you do whatever, and then maybe you return to it a little bit later in the same evening. So it will be really interesting. I just Not every movie, not every historical epic needs to be 3 hours, and I think that does sort of hinder some of and not just the Odyssey, but we see this across the board when these big sword and shield epics are made. But it hurts when you're not in the theater, I think.
Yeah.
But it does make for a more relaxed viewing, which it kind of segues into what we're going to talk about later on this episode. A lot of these movies I did not see in the theater from 2026, but I experienced them in a much more relaxed environment. And now I know that that's not what the purists want to hear. I was not going out to the theaters to see some of these films. I was
How
not part
dare
of.
you?
Yeah, I did not contribute to the $500 million box office of Obsession, but guess what? Still had just as good a time with it at home. So impact versus, you know, I don't even know, the pandemonium of seeing something in the theater. Age old debate
Well,
has only gotten stronger since, the COVID-19 lockdown, really. So I don't know. I think you can do both. Here's my hot take. You can still do both, and it's just fine.
well, what a wonderful segue, because our first piece of news I wanted us to kind of dive in on is the resurgence of the box office. So, Alex, we don't need you going to the theater this year
You don't. You don't.
because the box office is genuinely having a strong year. Through the end of July, domestic theatrical revenue is sitting at roughly 5.6 billion, which is about 10% ahead of the same point from last year in 2025 and 26% ahead of 2024. I'm always, when I'm reading these stories or looking at these numbers, I'm always curious to hear your thoughts on what is contributing to people going back to the theaters, and is this something that will continue to through the future, or is there just a really, really exciting slate happening right at this moment?
I think it's been well sustained over the year, right? Because you look back at some of the films that were released in the spring, like Project Hail Mary, and those filmmakers were very steadfast. And you will not be able to find this on streaming in 6 weeks. Like, yeah, it's going to end up on Amazon Prime at some point, but if you want to see this film, we're gonna have it. It's gonna run for 2 months in the theaters, which I love. And so I think that right there is the most encouraging thing that we can look to as kind of a North Star, is that filmmakers are now trusting the box office again in terms of fighting back against whether or not it's in the contract from the studios, but to say, we don't want an 18-day or 25-day or 6-month theatrical release window. They're going to fight for 2 months because they can point to something like Project Hail Mary or like Obsession, which actually saw a bump in its second week at the box office, where it went, I think up like 38% was the number I saw in its second weekend. That never happens, but it points to word of mouth. It points to community. We have social media to thank for that. We have Letterboxd to thank for that. There's so many different reasons why the box office is back. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you think that filmmakers are trusting the box office in a way that they have since probably pre-pandemic times?
Yeah, I think the fetishization of large format, and really, I think that groundwork probably started with Oppenheimer, and then carried into Sinners, and then now coming full circle. Like, it is like a driving force right now, especially for a younger generation, the generations below us, to experience these films in these gigantic theaters on these gigantic screens, because somehow we've like Jedi mind tricked people into, like, that is the only way to see the Odyssey. That is the only way to see Project Hail Mary. That's the only way to see a lot of these films, or one battle after another as well, with the VistaVision thing. So it's really interesting that is like the format and the opposed to the content that is going up there. But I think it's really about the format, and like not wanting to be like that person who's like, oh no, I didn't see it in IMAX, I just went to a Regal. I haven't gotten there with IMAX, but like, I am very like, listen, if it's not on 35 or 70 millimeter, I'm not going to go see the Odyssey at an AMC or a Regal when it's a DCP. Or my lovely partner Kaylee is now in that projection world, and she was mentioning the other night that she saw some footage of the Odyssey on DCP, and she's like, it looked so crappy. And I was like, really? I mean, the DCP really is just a digital print of the film stock. Like, can it be that bad? But I've fallen victim to it as well, where I am a huge celluloid snob now.
Yeah.
And I think it really started with the repertory, and especially down here in LA. And I mean, the scene down here is just insane. I'm going to see Miller's Crossing tonight on 35 millimeter.
Cool.
Which is a great film, and I love the Coen brothers movies, but like, I would never, like, if they were just showing it digitally, I probably wouldn't be going, but because it's on film, I feel like
that's another half star in your Letterboxd review right there.
Yeah. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I think also, we've had big franchises throughout the year.
And I was just gonna say, I mean, when you look at the box office top 10, what accounts for so much of this resurgence, they're movies that, aside from a few things like The Odyssey, maybe Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu, a lot of these films do not rely actually on any sort of prerequisite or asterisk to say the only way to see this movie is in IMAX, or you got to see it in 4DX or whatever it might be, because the families that are going to see Toy Story 5, the Super Mario Galaxy movie, even a film like Michael, Devil Wears Prada 2, you know, you can in the top 10 are Obsession and Backrooms. These movies are not dependent on their release format, and all of
Right.
these movies are playing in over, for the most part, they're playing in over 3,800 screens. 38, they're on 3,800 screens
Yeah.
across the country. So there's really no, aside from The Odyssey, which is the fourth highest grossing film of the year, like, to give it its flowers within just a couple of weeks.
And still grossing
100%. Yeah. A lot of these movies are just, they are representative of folks just going out to the movies.
Well, okay, then why are we going out to the movies?
Well, I think you were just about to touch on it. It's a lot of franchises. The first Super Mario movie, very popular. Toy Story 5, Devil Wears Prada 2, Star Wars, Spider-Man. And then you have, there's always going to be a big successful music biopic. So you have Michael, actually is the third highest grossing film of the year, which is wild. And those are almost all family friendly films. And then you get, things like The Backrooms or just Backrooms, and then Obsession in there. And even Project Hail Mary, I know it's an adaptation, but a little bit more of like an original story targeted towards, I would say, adults, maybe younger adults a little bit. Somebody like Ryan Gosling, of course, going to attract audiences across demographics, but there's been such a good balance, I think, within the top 10 of the box office. And then you look at some things right outside of there, and it's still reflective of that. When you go to the top 15, it's Hoppers, it's Minions and Monsters, it's Disclosure Day, it's even the Moana remake. Like, there's a lot happening here that just like has kind of been a perfect storm for, I think, again, like we always say, family friendly films and horror movies are the two things that you can always rely on at the box office. And this is very reflective of that.
Yeah, I guess the question is, are we going to, are the studios going to learn from that? And is this what the slate looks like going forward? Like maybe it's always looked kind of like this, right? Like, but are the films just better this year? I don't know. I when I think back to last year, right? You're thinking of Sinners. You're thinking of One Battle After Another. You're thinking, actually, I can pull this up.
Yeah, I mean, it was
Minecraft
movie,
Lilo and Stitch, Superman.
Park,
yeah.
Utopia, Wicked, Fantastic Four, How to Train Your Dragon. Like, it's always going to be franchise and family friendly films. What's missing, aside from maybe Sinners, in this group from 2025, is really that like original genre picture, because it's not until you get down to like 16 where you find a film like Weapons, or even something like
Demon Slayer.
Yeah, Demon Slayer,
but I guess that's a franchise too.
Yeah, but like F1, in the 14 spot from last year. And so what's more encouraging as far is for like a varieties, for the variety aspect of this conversation, is that films like, now of course Nolan's always going to play well, but that the Odyssey, Obsession, Backrooms, that there are good in Project Hail Mary, again, even though it is an adaptation, of course the Odyssey is as well, but like original stories for the most part.
Yeah. Do we think though that we have trained people now to go back? So like this should be the baseline every year. Like,
this is the blueprint. I think that what Obsession and Backrooms specifically have done this year, because those films were in the theaters at the same time as The Mandalorian and Supergirl, and they completely outperform them, especially when you weigh gross box office versus what those films cost to make. And so it's like not even, and that's been highly, highly publicized, I believe, and so I think a lot of people, teenagers, younger couples, married folks who go out on date nights, they're going to be more inclined now to say, I want to go see whatever. And it could be Scream 7. It could be another Ready or Not movie. It could be a horror film from a franchise, but they're going to be more inclined, I think, to say,
kind of stepped back into like the forefront of the culture at wide.
I think so too. And then, this is something we'll get into a little bit later on as well. But I also think that the quality of what you can just stay home and watch on your couch, as far as like a new streaming release on a Friday night, when it comes to a Netflix original or something that goes to Prime or Paramount Plus or HBO, that has fallen off in the last 2 to 3 years, I think. And so that has a lot to do with it as well. When you talk to a person with a Letterboxd account, like they will tell you that like the hidden gems, the things that are highly anticipated as far as like streaming exclusives, those are getting more few and far between as say maybe 2023, 2022.
Yeah, that's true. We haven't had a monoculture like show, probably since Game of Thrones, right?
No,
and there's been many attempts
talking about Widow's Bay. You hear all these little like things happening.
White Lotus.
Yeah. But as far as, because I'm looking at some of the films on our list here and I don't want to spoil too many of them, but I mean, as far as the streaming originals go, there has not been that one thing that has even captured social media and Letterboxd for a weekend, really. I don't think there has been anything.
Yeah. It's really interesting, and we'll continue to watch it. And I feel like it's only going to get. I mean, we still have some pretty big releases coming this year in 2026.
Yeah,
between something like Resident Evil that could really hit on a horror level.
I mean, that movie's going to make $100 million within the first 3 weeks, probably.
Yeah, Dune 3, Avengers Doomsday. There's going to be more and more hits. So like we could have the best box office year that we've had since 2018. Yeah. Which is very exciting. Very exciting.
It is.
However, those 3 movies I just mentioned are all franchise movies. So
yeah,
I don't know. Are the smaller stories getting served? I mean, obviously Obsession, Backrooms, proves that yes, they do sometimes, but it's going to be interesting. Did we shoot our whole wad, or did the movie slate shoot its whole wad this year? What is going to fill the calendar next year?
Fair enough.
No idea. Okay. Next piece of news I wanted us to look at was the continuing situation of the Paramount Warner Brothers merger. Paramount seeks antitrust trial in November, while there are 12 states now that have tried to block this merger, and they're seeking a trial in April of 2027. Paramount Skydance asked a judge on Friday to schedule its upcoming antitrust trial in November, while a coalition of states and the Writers Guild of America asked for a date in April 2027. The scheduling matters a lot to Paramount, which will begin paying Warner Brothers shareholders $7 million a day on September 30th until the deal is complete. In the filing, Paramount argued that the delay also, hurts the creative industry and the individuals who work within it and the consumers who benefit from it. The 12-state coalition, including California and New York, filed suit on July 13th, alleging that the $111 billion merger of Paramount and Warner Brothers will unlawfully reduce competition in the basic cable and theatrical distribution markets. The Writers Guild of America filed a separate suit the next day, arguing that it will also harm the marketplace for writers. Paramount has argued that the deal will help consumers by providing a more robust competitor to streaming giants like Netflix and Amazon Prime.
So my question to you, based off of that statement, is that does that resonate with you in terms of a lack of competition? Because if everyone's under the same umbrella, in theory, it means less jobs, or in the way that, Warner Brothers and Paramount, I think, are looking at it, is that they're saying creatively together, we can create more jobs. It might not be as high quality, like quantity over quality, I think might be their lens. Whereas the Writers Guild, they want quality. They want to be able to pick and choose better projects from different, from different companies. Is that how what I'm reading? Is that how I'm reading this?
Yeah. So I mean, listen, my position is that any sort of consolidation in this industry, specifically in the entertainment industry, is bad because there's less buyers. There are less buyers for creatives to
There's
go
more
sell
people
to.
at the top making singular decisions.
Right. So if we have one big studio that, is Paramount and Warner Brothers, you also have to think of all the smaller, like, offshoot brands that both of those studios have, right? Whether it's something like Blumhouse or the newly formed Clockwork over at Warner Brothers. Paramount, I know they used to have, like Vantage. And so if it's all one, right, like, then you're right. You're talking to a smaller group of people at the very top who have to green light that project. Whereas if it's multiple studios and multiple people, different people and different studios, you have a chance, like, oh, I will go to Paramount first and then I will go to WB. That's kind of like
I'll just try to go to Jason Blum, but then if Jason Blum has to answer to somebody at Paramount or WB, then the chances of, maybe Jordan Peele getting something like Get Out made are reduced. Totally.
Especially if he then has to, because here's the other thing. We don't know what the setup is going to look like if this deal ever goes through and this super studio is formed. Ellison has come out and said that, he plans to have WB still operate as a sole studio, but I don't, the pessimist in me does not believe that at all. He's still going to have say, so, like, if Blum, say our hypothetical situation here, Jordan Peele takes Get Out to Jason Blum. Jason Blum loves it, right? He then takes it to whoever's above him at the WB part of Paramount. They like it. They want to go for it. Ellison is, and who knows how many levels you have to get to Ellison, but, like, maybe then you have to take it over to Paramount and some executive there has to like it, and then another executive, and then it gets to Ellison, right? So, like, and that does, I think, that totally hurts the competition, and is Ellison someone who would have greenlit Get Out? You have to ask those questions, because if he is the say all be all at the end of the day, I don't know if Get Out turns out to be a Blumhouse film,
or even a theatrical release. Who knows? The other thing too about consolidation, and the thing that worries me, is that the bigger the studios, the more consolidated a single studio is, the more that they are going, because of the shareholder aspect, because of all the different mouths to feed at the executive level, they are going to need to feel more secure and rely more on tentpole releases like
Yeah.
quarterly than
Yep.
ever before. And
Yep.
that's the thing that worries me, because if those flop, and if those films are like a movie like Supergirl, and it flops, then the success of a film like Supergirl depends on that can really negatively affect a more mid-budget to lower budget film that's still going to end up getting picked up by a studio. But as far as the marketing that gets put into it, how many theaters it ends up in. And so that's the thing that really worries me, is that the more reliant that singular studios become, and it's going to continue in this way, unfortunately, that's just the trajectory of things. But like, that's what worries me, is that like, yeah, you can have Dune and you can have Odyssey and everything else that's underneath those umbrellas. Those are in a good place. But for every one of those, there's, we've seen it over the last 5 years with superhero films. There's another Eternals. There's another Supergirl. There's another Venom, or, there's movies that just flop.
Morbid time.
Yeah. Yeah. Or Morbius. Yeah. So I don't know. It's really encouraging to see that 12 states are trying to block the merger. I'd be really curious as to know which 12 states those are.
Yeah. I know California and New York obviously are mentioned in this article. Also, this article I was reading from is in Variety.
Okay.
You can go check it out there. I don't know if they list the other 10 states,
because I think it would be really impactful if the other states were places like New Mexico or Texas or Montana, places where these little pockets of filmmaking Georgia, big time. Yeah. These states where filmmaking has kind of had a resurgence, maybe not even a resurgence, but a big boom within the last 10 years due to how friendly some of those states can be with their tax cuts when it comes to filmmaking. And so, if it's a movie, or if it's a state in the Midwest like Iowa where no one films in, no one shoots in Iowa, it's kind of like, okay, I don't know how much leverage that really helps provide. And so it would be good. It would be cool to know, like, are the big boys, are the important players coming to the table to fight for this?
Well, yeah, I think the fact that California and New York, and
that's huge.
I mean, listen, I understand there's politics involved in this whole thing as well, and those are blue states, and Ellison is cozied up to the current administration, but
which, by the way, wants movies to be made in America. And again, we're not going to get political about things, but that is another, at least for the next 2 years, that is another big thing that like we will need to pay attention to, is how invested. Go ahead.
If anyone is serious about making movies in America, then they will make a nationwide film incentive, just like every other country in the world has done.
Yeah.
So if someone actually cares about films being filmed in the US, that is going to have to happen on a federal level.
Yeah. It won't be state by state.
It won't be state by state. But again, I think the fact that New York and LA, which are, 1 and 2, depending on the day, as film hubs in the United States, are against this, I think we should take notice to that. Also, the fact that the WGA is also fighting against this. I hope SAG-AFTRA gets involved. I hope the Directors Guild gets involved, because obviously if the writers are feeling nervous about it, the other components, IATSE, the other people who work in the industry better start feeling nervous about it as well. Because and I know you're thinking about, writers it's at the very beginning stages of making a film, right? It's the development, it's the screenwriting, it's the selling of the product, of the story. But if they're worried about stories being sold, then there won't be stories being made. And so the other the other unions need to step up as well.
Tricky stuff. You're our man on the ground, so keep us updated.
Okay, last piece of news. So Comic-Con was last weekend, of course, in San Diego. And there was a huge Marvel panel there, as there always is every single year. And there are some, it seems like it's so interesting. Marvel was at such a down point. You know, they were almost dead. But, and especially after this weekend with the record-breaking Spider-Man Brand New Day coming out, breaking records at the box office. I believe I have the numbers here. Yeah, highest grossing preview night, $72 million. And the biggest opening day, $168 million in domestic box office history. So along with that, it seems like Marvel is restocking their stable of stars for the next generation of Marvel stories.
Well, that's just it. I mean, when they were floundering, 5 years ago, they've almost aged out of a generation of moviegoers that I think have either moved on and aren't going to continue to contribute to Marvel box office success, but it doesn't matter because there's always going to be that next generation coming in behind them. So the people who were 16 5 years ago and not going to see these movies in the theater, they're 21 now. They got jobs. They're trying to start families. They're doing whatever. And now you have these kids who were 11, 5 years ago, and now they have a new Spider-Man movie. And now they have a new Avengers series coming out that they can make their own. And so it's a vicious cycle, but it's a tried and true one.
Yeah. And some of these castings, so Ryan Gosling, as we have mentioned, in Project Hail Mary this year, he's had Barbie in the past. He has kind of gone from our indie boy to our indie boy internet boyfriend to a mainstream big budget movie star. And now he has entered the Marvel universe. He has been cast as Ghost Rider, which will be I think the next movie after the second Avengers movie that comes out in 2027. So it'll be in 2028, but it sounds like he's going to be kicking off the next phase as a main, face among these characters. We've got Ryan Gosling as Ghost Rider. We've got David Johnson, who, came up through the show Industry, was really good on that. Then he was also in Alien Romulus recently as the android Andy, and The Long Walk last year. He will be the new Black Panther. He is the son of T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman's character. We have Kaylee Spaney has been heavily, and this isn't, I guess, confirmed, but heavily rumored and in discussions to play Rogue in the X-Men. We've got Charles Melton as Beast in the X-Men. Samara Weaving has been confirmed as Emma Frost in the X-Men. And then spoilers for Spider-Man Brand New Day, if you haven't seen it, Sadie Sink of Stranger Things fame as our new Jean Grey. So we are restocking, we are redrafting a whole new group of young, all of them to me right away, it just screams like, oh, these people are in their early 20s or mid 20s.
And we're targeting Gen Alpha.
Yeah. And we're targeting that. And they now are going to be locked up for 10 years, maybe 15 years.
So again, it's the wash, rinse, repeat cycle of in 10 to 15 years, will we look back at someone like Kaylee Spaney and say, God, it's really too bad that we didn't get more films like Priscilla or Civil War out of her because she was in X-Men for 4 movies. My take on all of this is that there's only so many ways to, like iron a wrinkled shirt. And I don't know if like we haven't seen an X-Man movie do really well in a long time. I don't know if
Mm.
Ghost Rider is the strongest IP. And so it'll be a really interesting experiment to see how strong is the backbone to Marvel and these actors, and can they open a movie that, I mean, like, I think Ghost Rider is one of these awesomely bad movies that people only lament because it's Nicolas Cage, and Nicolas Cage makes a stinker every 3 years that turns into a cult classic. And so it's like, I don't know if I don't know if the movies will end up being a bigger deal than the news themselves, than the news itself, I should say, of the casting is I
Yeah.
guess what I'm getting at. Now, a film like Avengers Doomsday and Robert Downey Jr. coming back, like those movies are going to be really successful. That I think you can put some money on. When we start talking about phase 6, phase 7, I don't even know what phase we're in with Marvel right now. I think we're still bound to have a couple of Morbiuses and Carnages and all these, like things that have failed. We're still bound to have a couple of those.
Yeah, it's also interesting too because like the Black Panther, and listen, the Black Panther movies are good movies. I would say out of the Marvel catalog, but also like that, I don't think that movie is going to be coming out until 2028, maybe 2029, and like and Ryan Coogler's going, directing that film, writing and directing that film with David Johnson. So you're not only taking David Johnson out of commission to make something like The Long Walk or to show up in an Alien film, which again is another franchise,
Yeah.
but now Ryan Coogler, after a huge success with Sinners, an original genre film, going back to the franchise Marvel for the next 3 years. I don't want to see him spend his time like that. I know these films mean a lot to him, but that's disheartening. We're not going to get another Sinners, at least
Not for a while.
Not
and
for a while.
The thing about screenwriters, directors, filmmakers versus actors, and of course an actor can still have an incredibly long and prosperous career. Directors I get a little less worried about because someone can still be in their prime as far as like creative intellect in their 50s, 60s, even their 70s. And so do we still have another like 2 solid decades of Coogler hopefully making original stories? Yes. So I'm less worried, I guess, about the directors that get poached for these films. And there's a really good example of that coming up here in a minute when we talk about some of our films that we missed from earlier this year, about people still being able to return to, I think, their comfort zone and where they're really where they're really successful. It's the actors that I get more disheartened about.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's, and in the case of Gosling,
sound like, well, and exactly, I was just going to say, sorry to interrupt, but like, then that's when we just like have to get up on our soapbox and we sound like we're on Letterboxd 8 hours a day, when we have to just be like, well, you got to go back and watch Half Nelson, and you got to go back and do Lars and the Real Girl, and do all of this, like commissioning for these films of yesteryear that we're just worried we're never going to get again. And so that's the part that kind of stinks, when you've been a fan of somebody for a really long time and then they make a choice like this. But again, Gosling's got a family. He's, I'm sure, got, I don't know if he and Eva Mendes have children together, but like it's the whole Ben Affleck thing of him saying, I want to be Batman for my kids. And you're just like, you hear that and you're reminded that these guys are people too. And you're just sort of like, okay, I can't blame you.
Yeah. It just, I'm worried about, I guess I'm worried about Gosling the most, right? Like, because as you were saying, Ghost Rider is not the strongest character, but neither was Iron Man back in 2008, right?
Fair enough.
But Downey Jr. is a special enough performer to really grab hold of the audience. And I think Gosling has
and
that same tenor.
I think so. And let's be real, the Iron Man movies, they became a bigger deal in the wake of the MCU and not so much upon their release. Were those movies successful in 2008 and 2011 or whenever they came out? Yeah, of course. But like Iron Man didn't become this, I think, like pop culture beacon for the resurgence in superhero movies until all the other films came along with him. And that's what I think Kevin Feige and everyone in the MCU and at Disney are trying to figure out, is how do we build around another either singular superhero or group of superheroes to try to have that same effect, that, you know, to have that like lightning in a bottle feeling that they did from the 2010s.
Right. Yeah. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, because there's, Gosling is also doing a Star Wars movie next year. So he might be tied up in both of these worlds. And yeah, we lose,
and then we just have
Place
to tell
Beyond
people,
the Pines.
go back and watch Only God Forgives. Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe he'll use all that success and money for good and still make small indies on the side. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know Gosling personally, not yet. Okay. That is all the news.
That's what people are saying.
That's what all the people are saying. We wanted to highlight some films now that we've gone back and seen or caught up on, things we were off the air for a long time. So there were a lot of movies in between us in January and
then the Odyssey.
And the Odyssey.
The Odyssey is not the first release of 2026.
It was our own Odyssey getting to the Odyssey.
Stopped on a lot of different islands.
If all these movies were separate islands, that'd be a very disturbing trip. Where do you want to start? And again, we don't have to go into super detail about these, but
I mean, I would
big list.
On our list here, though, I would love to hear you talk about the first film that we have listed, because I have not had a chance to see it, and I feel like probably a lot of other folks maybe haven't either. The release was somewhat limited, but it's a movie that I feel like will probably hit streaming sooner rather than later. So why don't you talk about The Invite?
Yeah, The Invite is directed by Olivia Wilde, starring Olivia Wilde, Seth Rogen, Edward Norton, good to see him, and Penelope Cruz, another great person to see that we haven't seen in a long time. I feel like Olivia Wilde and Seth Rogen are kind of always around, especially with the success of the studio. But this film is equally hilarious. It's heartbreaking. It is such an old school feel because it is a film for adults. It's a drama set in one place, one night. It's about, being in your 40s. It's about being in a long relationship. It's about, how do we come to terms with being settled? And also it's, I think, the Edward Norton and the Penelope Cruz character, then they enter the story and they shake things up and try to bring a new perspective to Olivia Wilde and Seth Rogen's characters. I thought this movie was really great. It was a fun experience. The theater was packed. It got a lot of laughs. It also got a lot of people choked up. I think it's written really well. It was something that's unique about it. It was filmed chronologically, which is usually not how you film a film. But because of that, it feels very play-like. Ironically, I had just watched Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, the Mike Nichols film from back in the 60s. I think like maybe a month before seeing this film. And there's a lot of that DNA in it. It's a lot of, people who are probably unhappy and haven't talked about why they're unhappy. So again, like it felt very 90s to watch, an adult. And it was a nice palate cleanser from a lot of, as we said during the box office talk, like a lot of the franchise, the big grand stories that are being told. So I would definitely go out and seek this out, whether it's probably not playing near you, but seek it out when it comes out on VOD. I also think it could play in the awards season. I don't think there's a lot like this right now.
I mean, really good word of mouth on this film. I didn't really see any negative reviews. And Olivia Wilde is such an interesting filmmaker who I feel like she is an old soul who would probably watch something like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf or some of Hitchcock's maybe less suspenseful, but more relationship and interpersonal focused stories, and look
Stranger on a Train.
Yeah, look to those for influences and inspiration for a film like this. Coming off of Don't Worry, Darling, I think maybe people thought she was trying to crib too much from maybe like a Black Mirror episode or something like that. And so it's cool to hear you say that this got back to being a really kind of like thought-provoking yet still entertaining and emotional movie.
Yeah, and she is in a really interesting moment, I think, of her career right now, because she's also starring in the new Greg Araki film, which I haven't been able to go see yet, but it's called I Want Your Sex, and that's supposed to be a really good performance from her. And if you know Greg's movies, those are very turbulent films.
Yeah. Push. All right. The first one I want to kind of bring up here, and I alluded to this movie a little bit, not by name, but I did earlier, and that's The Bone Temple, the third film out of, well, I guess really the fourth film now out of the 28 Days, 28 Years Later franchise. What I appreciated so much about this movie is this was a return to form from Nia DaCosta, the director. And here's somebody who did get pulled from making really fun, interesting genre pictures into the superhero universe by making the film The Marvels, or is it just called Marvels? I forget.
I think, The Marvels. Yeah.
And big flop, not successful, and was really too bad. But honestly, like as a fan of hers, and I'm sure she got the bag to make the movie, so happy for her in that regard. But when that happens, then you're like, okay, now please come back to us. And that's really what happened here with The Bone Temple. And I love it because Danny Boyle and Alex Garland still involved in the production and in the screenwriting of this film. But Nia DaCosta, she is such a visceral and nasty filmmaker. I loved Candyman, the remake that we got there in 2022, I believe it was. And I saw a lot of the same stuff from her in this movie. I enjoyed this movie a lot more than 28 Years Later. I thought that it was really cool to really focus in on the Ralph Fiennes character, and then also for it to kind of be this road movie about this about another young person. There's always like a really good like compare and contrast between like how different people from different ages would be experiencing a post-apocalyptic situation like this with zombies. I just thought this movie was really, really successful. I believe it's on Netflix to stream right now, but one that I probably should have gone out and seen in the theater just because I do like Nia DaCosta so much as a filmmaker. But once I finally got around to it, I had a great time with it, and it was kind of everything I wanted.
Still one I have to fire up. I have no excuse why I haven't watched this yet.
Well, you don't have Netflix, and neither do I. I watched this when I was dog sitting for some family friends who have Netflix, and so
that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have an excuse. Great. Let's touch on another kind of disgusting horror-ish movie, Lee Cronin's The Mummy. This is a movie I went and saw in theaters.
Yeah.
I was excited for this. I loved I enjoyed Evil Dead Rise, which was Lee Cronin's last film. And a lot of that somehow this movie didn't do well at the box office because I thought it was such a fun watch. I thought it was such a nasty, almost an Evil Dead version of the Mummy. We're resurrecting people. We're fucking doing bugs and shit.
The way I've been describing this movie, because I love this film as well, is that, and I think maybe this is where some of the marketing was just, the movie didn't know how to market itself almost, because people thought it was a remake of the Brendan Fraser Mummy from 1999. It's not really.
Not at all. It has nothing to do with that. Even though that remake's coming out next year.
Maybe people thought it was more of a new take, a new twist on the universal story of the Mummy. It's more that than it is something like the Brendan Fraser film, but it's really its own movie that is disgusting. It's a possession film, really. It's closer to something like The Exorcist than any of these other IPs that you could attach it to. I love this film. This is in my top 5 of the year so far.
I believe it's my number 5 at the moment. This movie was fucking awesome. And it just rips too. It doesn't,
it's 2 hours, 15 minutes. Do not be intimidated by the runtime. It goes really fast.
It grabs a hold, and it does such a good job. I also love that there's not really a big name in this film either, right?
No.
You might recognize the boyfriend from Midsummer.
Yeah.
Right. But other than that, really, really solid.
I think immersion is so important in a movie like this. Really in all films, let's be honest. And so it's tough when you have just A-list celebrities filling up, casting spot 1 through 10. But this is not a film that feels like that. And I think it helps with the success of the film's authenticity so much. Because there are just you need a movie like this to hit like that, so that you can say that looks like somebody who would be harboring the secrets of keeping a mummy entombed in its sarcophagus for that's their family's job, decade after decade, generation after generation. You needed to feel like that, and not oh, that's Nicole Kidman dressed up as some gypsy
right.
And so I loved it for that. I loved it for really how gross it is. This movie it's so gross, but without really being overly gory. I guess there is a lot of blood in the film, but not on the level of something like Evil Dead Rise, which I do think it was sort of just how much in parts of that film. It's how much blood can we fit on the screen? How many gallons of fake blood can we bring onto the set here? This just feels really tactile, and a lot of it feels practical too, which I love.
Dude, when they're cleaning the daughter and the toenails and the
tendons
pus
are being ripped, and oh man.
It was wild to see in a theater.
There's a lot. Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, just at home, there was a lot of squirming and, my hand being clenched and going up to my mouth, and just me saying, oh shit. And it's a really good time. And again, I would explain it almost more like it's a possession film, like The Exorcist meets something like National Treasure. There is still sort of a mystery that needs to be solved through historical context and clues and figuring things out. But do not go into it thinking that you're watching some, Indiana Jones movie with great pyramids and things of that nature. So yeah, The Mummy's awesome.
Yeah. Let's see. A film I just saw that I've talked to you a little bit about off mic. And actually, who knows? Maybe we'll get flagged for talking about it, because I don't think it's widely released until the end of or middle of September, maybe. But this is Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. this, of course, is from is it Jane Schoenburn? Yeah, I believe so. Who made the TV Glow? I watched the TV Glow.
I saw the TV Glow.
I saw the TV Glow, and we're all going to the World's Fair.
We're all going to the World's Fair. We like sentences. This filmmaker really likes their titles or their names to be sentences.
Yeah. And I know we've talked about this, but this film, it's interesting. This filmmaker is obviously, I think, very. First of all, they obviously love 80s slashers, right? Like it's kind of built around this. It's like this meta take on something that is like Friday the 13th in this world, which is a franchise of slasher films that started in the 80s and are pretty schlocky. And the main character is a new filmmaker who is just an indie filmmaker who has just been picked by the studio to come in and remake or reimagine, give us an origin story, I believe is the goal here for this Camp Miasma franchise. And there's a lot of love. You can see on screen that there's a lot of love for 80s horror. However, I think Jane is also very, very in love with the style of David Lynch and surrealism and any sort of films that can be categorized as psychedelic. And much like I Saw the TV Glow, there is a underlining message there that she's trying to get across. And I think, and I Saw the TV Glow, it's about, being an other and figuring out your identity. Whereas this is much more centered around sexuality and unfortunately, trauma around sexual experiences. But I want, and I have never seen let's all go to the World Fair, or we're all going to the World Fair. So I don't, and I know you love that film, and I don't know how to, if this is something that it goes across all three films, this kind of, again, psychedelic, trippy, surrealist take. But I'm ready for Jane, instead of trying to imitate something like that on the next film. I want to see Jane like find their own frequency, where we're not trying to just make a David Lynch film set in a 80s slasher. And again, that might sound like, ignorant and terrible criticism, but I think maybe we've done two movies like that, and I would like to see a little bit more plot, a little bit more structure, as opposed to just like, we're just going to do a bunch of crazy visuals and some great needle drops and kind of make you float through the movie.
Yeah. I think that what was so great about We're All Going to the World's Fair is that film felt deeply personal without influence. And what I think was one of the biggest hiccups of I Saw the TV Glow is that film also felt personal, but with an overwhelming amount of influence. And so it's hard then for the messaging and the meta context of a movie that is obviously very personal and wants to, resonate with people who have gone through the same experiences. For the folks who have not, and it's okay to not make a movie for the masses. I want to be very clear about that. Like, it is okay to have your film be influenced by the filmmakers that you grew up idolizing and worshiping and pulling inspiration from, while then still trying to tell your own personal story. But when you create this wonderful thing called film and it's art and it's open for interpretation, and you can just stick your middle finger up and say, you know what, it's not for you. I'm not worried if it doesn't work for everybody, if it doesn't play for all audiences. But ultimately, then you have to be open and receptive to criticism of people saying, and we've seen this across multiple decades through a lot of different types of filmmakers. You have to be okay when people say it kind of just seems like you're trying to do David Lynch. And I mean, somebody we talked off mic about, like, Brian De Palma faced this basically his entire career. For people who aren't into psychosexual thrillers and who can't just like love that he's trying to do Alfred Hitchcock on a more extreme graphic level, people throughout De Palma's entire career, that was just their big criticism of him. You know, there's been people who have tried to copy Spielberg for 40 years, and that's what they've been faced with. And so this is going to happen. And I think the trickiest thing about when you are a surrealist and you're dealing with the abstract, but you're also trying to make something for quote unquote vibes, is that it gets really tricky when something that is supposed to be so transcendental and pure and just flow like water, the way that David Lynch's mind and dreams obviously were so singular and helped create incredible stories. When it feels like you're just sort of like copying that aesthetic, that's when I think it bothers me. Maybe it's bothered you a little bit in this most recent film of like, okay, again, a respect to the story and the intention behind it, but also if it's the more that it starts to feel less personal and more like something you've seen before, when it's so clear and obvious that you're trying to be personal and true to yourself, then that's when I just think it becomes a bit confusing, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, and again, like it's closer than I Saw the TV Glow. I think it's closer to having more of a structure, I guess, right? Because there is, you know, it's much funnier than I Saw the TV Glow. There's more satire. There's more, you know, nods to other things, I guess you could say. Like it's almost like Sunset Boulevard-y in its setup with its two main characters. And it's got some good commentary, like meta commentary on the film industry. But
which is great. Like take yourself less serious. I think it's always important for filmmakers to take themselves less serious.
But I think what really bothered me is just kind of how like it all wrapped up, and it was just like, oh well, you know, it's surreal. And so like I you know, I don't know. I don't know. It's an interesting film, just like I Saw the TV Glow was an interesting film. I'm glad I saw it in the theater with a group of people. You know, I haven't fired I Saw the TV Glow up ever again. I probably won't fire this one up ever again.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about kind of a fun one that certainly does not take itself too serious. A movie that is it just hit streaming. This is the #2 film, I believe, on Amazon Prime right now. It's sharksploitation at its best and worst. It's called The Devil's Mouth. I love a movie like this. I love a good 3-star movie like this. It's about a group. I mean, like, I don't even think I probably need to tell people what it's about. Like, you get it, right? It's just a group of people. This time we're in Thailand. We're going cave diving, cave exploring, snorkeling, however you want to categorize the adventure here. And guess what? We have a bull shark that somehow found its way into a freshwater cave system. And death and murder ensue. It's just a good time. It's a good time.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. It looks like shit. The shark looks bad, but like you are still along for the ride.
The shark looks really bad.
The shark looks just horrendous. Like Amazon, you spend $1 million an episode on the Lord of the Rings show.
Yeah.
Like we can make a better looking shark.
We've
Like
got
this looks almost sci-fi channel.
Sharknado. Yes.
Yeah.
Especially I was pretty disappointed in, and I don't even want to call it, I was thinking a lot about my beloved like Turistas or Into the Blue, some films where I'm like, the underwater, and I will say cinematography in those films is so well done. And there's been other movies that you really feel like that is a camera underwater with a glass cage or however they're going to do it, but like we are really filming underwater. There are very little points in this film where I feel like we have a camera underwater and and actors are in tanks and we are, or even just like in a cave. We went to Thailand because clearly we went to Thailand.
We're in Thailand.
We're
definitely
Thailand.
in, but as soon as we enter the cave, we're not in Thailand anymore.
Which is just so baffling. It's so baffling to me why we don't do that. I don't know. Yeah, but all that to be said, I love a movie where there's 8 total characters and 6 of them are going to die, and then it really just comes down to like, are the 2 best friends, are the 2 characters who we learn the most about their relationship, is one of them going to survive? Are we going to have a final girl, a final character, or are they both going to make it out alive? And so it feels very much like The Descent in that regard at times in this film.
Yep.
And so there's a lot to like, while there being a lot to laugh at and there being a lot to cringe at in this film. I always love a good shark movie though. So, and again, I don't know, you're obviously never going to be able to film a real shark in these situations, except for, but then, I look at something like Into the Blue. They did use real sharks, and Paul Walker and Jessica Alba were with real sharks in that film. So like it can be done. It really can be done. And now maybe, I don't know, maybe the insurance rate on something like that for studios has just gone through the roof and it's really not, maybe it can't be done anymore. What do I know? But even something like The Shallows, which is like, I'm sure 99% a CGI shark, looks better than this film. And that movie was 10 years ago. So
yeah. I think part of the problem is that it's not like a souped up shark, right? Like it's just a bull shark.
Which, normal. I love, because it's about time that it's not a great white. I love that it was a bull shark, actually. I do want to get that out there.
But like he's just like normal size too, though. Like he's just and there's exposition. I think one character is like, it's a bull shark. They can go in saltwater and freshwater, and they're extremely aggressive.
Which is true. I mean, hey, I watch Shark Week every single year, and they always talk about tropical storms in the southeast part of the United States, and bull sharks ending way further up north in the Mississippi River than they need to be, and like, they can wreak havoc. And so part of that is Nat Geo approved, I guess I would say, but also, it's just kind of like, but like in a cave system, would a shark be really imposing and territorial? And also there is that little piece of exposition where like, well, it was probably brought in here by, there was supposed to be a storm in this film that then raised the water level, and that's how it ended up in the cave system. And so now it's territorial and it's lost and it's in this maze as well as our divers. So I don't know, it's so goofy, it's so choppy, but it's a good time.
I appreciate the jelly.
So I wish that it was a little bloodier, I guess. Some of the shark deaths feel a little muted.
Yeah, it was funny at first. I thought they were just like taking people, like it was just killing people off screen. Yeah, and I was like, oh no, come on, what? Like people just started like disappearing. It seemed like, and then but we would find those people again, and then they would get properly killed.
Yes.
Yeah.
The jellyfish scene, I do like that, and I also at the very beginning of the film. I was almost able to talk myself into like, could this be a spiritual sequel to The Beach? Because it's so hard not to feel like every film set in Thailand and that's around Koh Phangan and like the areas in which I know they filmed The Beach just looks like that, but the character who I'm looking to find this actress's name, because I do really like her. I feel like she's sort of like almost like market correcting Haley Lou Richardson, and I know Zoe Deutsch is just like she eats on demand, and so no one's really ever going to market correct Zoe Deutsch, but this actress's name, who was in Ready or Not 2 with Samara Weaving, whose name is Catherine Newton. She says at the beginning that her father came to Thailand and used to love to swim in the caves, and that's why she's there to like kind of visit the spots that he went to. So of course I'm like, okay, well, her father's Leonardo DiCaprio in the beach, and she's making the homage back to Thailand. that's what I talked myself into.
That's so funny. When I fired it up, Kaylee was like, "What is this?" I was like, "Think of it as the Temu version of the beach."
That's funny. So yeah, there's worse things you could put on it. I don't know if you're watching this on YouTube right now and you need something to do at 2:00 this afternoon while you're cleaning the house. Like there's worse things you could put on that are just in the background that don't really require a whole lot of attention.
Yeah. Another streamer. Did you finish The Dink?
I did not finish The Dink. But I'll tell you what, it seems to be one of these, we kind of said there hasn't been like that one monoculture streaming movie that has taken over. And this is not that movie, but it is interesting because every single person, and so I feel bad because I'm every single person besides me, I guess, every single person who I talked to that plays pickleball has seen this movie already. They did fire it up. No one has liked it.
Really?
But people have watched it. And so, as far as the marketing goes, more power to the folks at The Dink.
I thought it was pretty charming and pretty funny.
Well, that I think it can be. I think it can be a good sports movie, kind of like the rags to riches of a injured athlete, washed up athlete, someone who needs to like rehab not only their body but their ego and discover a gentler side to themselves through playing a different sport. I mean, we see this before now, maybe not necessarily transitioning out of a sport as this film does, right? Like we go from tennis to then playing pickleball. We're making fun of pickleball at the beginning, but then we kind of learn to love the competition. And I do think that that's really true to a lot of folks who have found pickleball and who either used to be former tennis players or even athletes coming from a different sport who maybe can't do what they used to do on the basketball court or on the football field anymore. And they're finding the same competitive juices on the pickleball court. So I do think that the film, from everything I have heard and read, does nail that aspect.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it is, Happy Gilmore, but as far as a sports comedy goes, and I think it's got the perfect star in it. Jake Johnson headlines this film, and he is just like, he is equally like the dumbest person in the world, but so incredibly charming that you're on his side the whole time. And then the relationship, which is usually, with Mary Steenburgen, they keep going back to like this. They have this moment of like watching The Graduate, and it's like trying to comment on that, but it actually like it kind of cucks out and doesn't go all the way there.
Okay.
But they actually gave her like a real character to play. Cool. And there's a tennis star that comes in the later half.
Andy Roddick, right?
Andy Roddick, that like just destroys. Like he is really funny. Good. And just a perfect like dick tennis player that then Jake Johnson has to like go up against. And then you've got people around him like Ed Harris or is it Charlie's mom from Always Sunny in Philadelphia is like one of the pickleball ladies that's friends with Mary. Yeah, I was kind of just like, why wasn't this in theaters? Like you could have thrown this in theaters and like it's counter counter programming to something like the Odyssey or a Spider-Man, and like I think it would do all right. Because when's the last time you saw a decent sports comedy?
Yeah, sports comedy. I think that's the most important part of that phrase right there, right?
Yeah.
Is it
And
this isn't trying to
pickleball
be
is
Rudy.
Pickleball is so popular and the people are so crazy about it. Like, I think this could have done some business for Apple.
Well, that's really encouraging to hear you say, and gives me more reason to fire it up. Because I do want to think that like the story arc and the performances are all we really need in this film. And then, I think if we make a couple of jokes about pickleball and maybe even at pickleball's expense, I know that there's been a few things that have been clipped about like, one of the parts of the pickleball court is called the kitchen. So of course there's going to be some jokes made about staying in the kitchen or get out of the kitchen.
Give me a knife while you're in there in the kitchen.
See, like I think that some of that stuff to a pickleball player and someone who also maybe just doesn't watch a lot of movies or even sports movies, they could watch this film and then I end up talking to them on the court and they're like, it was pretty cringe, it was pretty bad or whatever. And it's like, okay, but what are you watching?
That's people taking pickleball way too serious.
Way too serious. And do you think that this movie is going to be He Got Game and do for pickleball what that movie did for like street hoops and basketball in the 90s, like, or in the late 80s and 90s? It's like, no, it's not. Okay. This is an Apple original produced by Ben Stiller. Okay. Let's be real.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. And Ben Stiller has a great, like, elongated
cameo.
Multiple cameos. I mean,
great.
Again, much like fucking Happy Gilmore, he's just kind of like the side character that pops in. So yeah, go check out The Dink. I think it's actually cool. one of the gems of this year.
Okay. Let's kind of crank through a couple of these final ones here because I do want to have like kind of a bigger discussion about Obsession here at the end. But one of our guys, someone who is from the moment we started this podcast, we've always loved the films of Gore Verbinski. He came back this year with a film that I have not been able to watch yet, but that you saw and I believe you really liked. So talk about that real quick.
Yeah. Don't worry. Good luck. Don't die. Listen, I think the big fault of it.
Just to be clear here, if people are unfamiliar with that name, because he has not made a movie in like in 10 years, I believe, since A Cure for Wellness. But this is the guy that did the American remake of The Ring. He did the first Pirates of the Caribbean film. Like Gore Verbinski.
He did all three, didn't he? Didn't he do all three of the Pirates movies?
Maybe, yeah.
First three, yeah. I don't count any
really
other ones after those three.
Talented filmmaker.
This guy is great, and he knows how to do scale and like. He knows how to do fantasy really well. Like, say what you will about The Lone Ranger, not a very successful film that he made, but still looks awesome. And
Rango looks, and I know we're talking animated, but again, just this guy's got a lot of different pitches.
Yeah, Deakins was the cinematographer on Rango.
Right.
But no, this is starring Sam Rockwell, Haley Lou Richardson, as you mentioned earlier, is in this film. And then a lot of Michael Pena, Zoe Kravitz, a lot of those guys and that girls, but like really good ensemble cast. I think it's really original sci-fi, has some comedy in there because you've got Sam Rockwell going off and throwing 100. I think the one thing that is a detriment to it gets a little bit of a CGI mess towards the end. But it's a cool sci-fi film about AI, about screens, about the impending doom that all awaits us as we continue to become more and more, screen-laden zombies. And it's got a really great twist at the end. At the very end, when you think the movie's over, it's actually not. And it just kind of then like leaves you to think like, oh wow, I wonder what's going to happen next, which unfortunately I don't think we'll ever know what happens next. But yeah, I loved this movie. I love the way it looks. I love the way it sounds.
It's on Amazon Prime now, I believe. So
Amazon Prime, go check it out. I think it came out back in January, so it was kind of dumped, which is unfortunate because this feels like something that could have came out in March and had a little bit of a moment if it was marketed better and in a better window of movie going. But yeah, love it. I hope Gore. I hope hopefully he doesn't take another 10 years off. Like, please keep making big budget movies.
Yeah. Okay. One that I'll just touch on real quick. Another streamer that I watched. It's called Apex. This is just Charlize Theron and Taron Edgerton.
Edgerton. Joel Edgerton.
Yeah, no,
Eddington.
Taron, though. Brother Taron is.
Are they brothers? No.
Joel.
Joel and Taron.
And they both have the same last name, Edgerton. And you're asking if they're brothers? They've got to be. Are you kidding me?
They're both from Australia. Okay, anyways.
Yeah, they've got to be. Okay, so this takes place in the Australian bush. I don't know what you call the
I think it's the bush. You spend a lot of time in the bush.
This review's already off the rails. So okay, and also like in the opening scene, Charlize Theron she's married to Eric Bana. They're kind of thrill seekers. They're climbing a mountain like in the Himalayas or whatever. He meets his demise. She, of course, is carrying the weight. She feels responsible for it. So we're backpacking through Australia to deal with our trauma. We're a lone ranger. We're going out and doing all of these things on our own now. Without our partner, and she meets Taron Egerton's character like at a rest stop basically, and you see that this one area there's been so many people lost out in the bush, and so she goes out there, and of course we see why, and it's because of the Taron Egerton character. Soft spoilers there, but it's not really that big of a deal. So the movie kind of then becomes this like cat and mouse game of chase and a little bit of revenge towards the end of the film, and it's perfectly fine. It's a movie that, again, I wish Netflix would just, because it's a Netflix original, I wish that they would just like tear the envelope up and really make like a nitty gritty movie like this. Instead of having it be, because it's still rated R. It's pretty gnarly in some parts with the bodily harm that is inflicted, and so they could have gone, or that, and again, whatever, it's not Netflix's, they're not in control of the script that comes to them. I guess it would be a good way to put it, like what's on the page is what's on the page. But there's been movies that have been gnarlier that are in this same vein that I've liked a lot more. But again, a perfectly fine, just kind of like action original thriller that doesn't feel, it feels very familiar to a lot of other stuff. So if that's your cup of tea, it's got 2 movie stars in it that are pretty watchable. Yeah.
Netflix, another one I got to check out one day when I have access to a Netflix.
Yeah.
Briefly, I went and saw Spider-Man last night. This is Spider-Man Brand New Day. Breaking records all over. This one is directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, who also did movies like Just Mercy and Short Term 12. Best Tom Holland Spider-Man yet. Actually looked like a movie. Had composition and shadows and real lighting. On top of that, as much as I question, Tom Holland in something like The Odyssey with his performance, the guy, he's incredible in this movie as Peter Parker. I'm a bit of a, Spider-Man is just so incredibly, the IP or the character of Peter Parker and Spider-Man are incredibly important to me, just because I grew up reading those comics. That was kind of like the introduction to superhero stuff. But really good. And it's kind of a backdoor X-Men origin movie, which we mentioned during our casting news. Sadie Sink is in this movie. She is Jean Grey. She is, framed as a villain at first, and has really cool powers and but also like a touching like motivation and story. And listen, it's breaking records for a reason. I really do think this is like probably the best thing Marvel has put out, and Spider-Man always is kind of like the best thing Marvel puts out, because I think Sony has a lot to do with that, and Amy Pascal has a lot to do with that. It's not a total Kevin Feige Marvel product, but this one was probably since Raimi's Spider-Man 2, probably the best Spider-Man story, because it feels very Spider-Man. It's very New York. It's very small. It's very real, grounded. Not a crazy CGI mess. You've also got John Bernthal in this film as fucking the Punisher, just doing Bernthal things, just not even saying words, just running into a room with a gun blazing, going, "Arr!" And I love that guy. He's such a treasure.
No one's having more fun.
No one. So yeah, as much as we fear, Marvel and don't like a lot of what they're doing all the time, Spider-Man's still a pretty great property, and this movie rocks. So
I mean, it's good to hear. It's comforting to hear that
it doesn't need my recommendation.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, just for time purposes, we both, I think, really liked Ready or Not 2. That was
fun.
a solid fun film that I think I underappreciated, honestly. Just kind of based on my reaction to Ready or Not and my allegiance to a film like You're Next. I just really felt like Ready or Not kind of like cribbed a lot from that movie. Ready or Not 2 feels more like its own thing within kind of this same universe, though, but now something that has these like crazy cult rules and really does feel like otherworldly. And this movie really leans into that. I thought that Elijah Wood character was amazing in this movie. Is kind of like the shepherd for what's going on outside of the space that we're in. So Ready or Not 2, really fun. I kind of want to wait to maybe talk about Backrooms until I've had a chance to see that film. Really want to get around to that, just because huge fan of the viral movement and the shorts that began kind of that that film. And so I think that really brings, and maybe Project Hail Mary too, because I have not had a chance to see that. And I feel like there might be space on like an end of the year list to talk about that movie if it kind of stays within like that top 10 range, as I think a lot of people have it right now.
I really need you to watch the drama too.
And the drama as well.
I really want to talk to you about the drama.
A few people have said that that's a real Alex coded movie.
Yeah. And I got to know your feelings on it.
Okay. And so then that brings us to Obsession. We'll close this out with like a kind of a big spoiler heavy deep dive into our thoughts on Obsession. Because this, I mean, outside of the IP, I think this is the movie of the year so far. Outside of like a franchise, I think this is the movie of the year. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, it's.
And I'm including the Odyssey with, IP, right? Like that is an adaptation.
Of course, yeah, it's an adaptation. I think this movie, 2026 will be remembered, of course, for big stuff, but I think it will also be remembered as Curry Baker's breakout with Obsession. Because as you said, the box office, and it wasn't just the second weekend. Like I think again in like the fifth weekend, the box office went up. It had gone down more, but it surged again. So this movie really captured audiences this year, and will be remembered.
I mean, the character of Nikki, played by Indy Navarrete, people are saying like she could get nominated for an Oscar. That like this is, and I mean, I'm sure some of the the Chainsaw Awards or all the genre award bodies are going to recognize this performance. But this would be amazing if this is the movie that or the performance, and I could see it happening. I wouldn't feel like it was too little, too late, or like it wouldn't be a career achievement nomination, but it would be like a genre achievement nomination, where this could be like the Toni Collette for Hereditary, or this could be the Florence Pugh for Midsommar. This could be that performance that finally does get recognized by the Academy with an award nomination, which I think would be sick.
Yeah, I think Indy is going to be in our lives a long time. Also, Michael Johnston is going. He's already rumored to be in that Brendan Fraser Mummy movie that will be coming out next year or the year after. So I think both of these people did a really good job in this film.
Just like full commitment. You love when you're just like, okay, you can tell that Curry Baker created an incredibly welcoming environment on set for these people to really get into these characters, because this movie doesn't work if you don't buy into the desperation from the bear character, from Michael Johnston's character, and if you don't believe that Indy is really like, would you say possessed? Would you say highly influenced? Like, if you don't believe that her character is truly out of control of her own actions.
Yeah, that's very true. And yeah, I was kind of wondering, what do you think she is? Is there something that is possessing her? Is it some sort of like, it can't be like a replacement, right? Like, it's not like she got replaced.
No, because we see the moment
she comes back. Yeah.
Yeah, outside of the house once he makes the first wish.
Yeah, she breaks it, for moments. Yeah, this movie, it's so good at like its concept and its lore is so good at like creating more questions around it, and then having the restraint not to answer those questions.
And we talked about that, where like the final, the third act of this film easily could have been Bear trying to like turn into an investigative journalist and figure out, these wishing sticks and where they come from and who's to blame, and trying to find someone other than himself to really point the finger at, which would just not be the point of the story. I think that this movie works so well because for the first half of the film, you almost sympathize with Bear because he is somebody that just wants connection. And then by the second half of the film, you're so against him for what he's done to Nikki and entrapping her in this place of deep psychotic commitment to him, which is all against her will. And so I think that like free choice and just like there's so much, even like consent becomes like part of this movie's storytelling and part of its narrative. And it's brilliant in that sense.
Yeah. It's and it also, like, the movie obviously famously has been made for $750,000, and so much quality is put on screen with that. That is 2 cents of an actual budget, movie, like a production. Movie budget. And so for it to look as good as it does, sound as good as it does, like the quality put on screen is pretty remarkable. I think also it also really connected with especially the younger audience. Obviously, Gen Z is like the huge part of this audience that is going to see this movie and going to back to see it again and taking friends.
Right.
Because I think it's touching on like this, it's the toxic, like nice guy male archetype, right? Like Bear is he's conceived to be a nice guy. Like he's presented to be the nice guy who's, friends with you at work, but like,
yeah. But like, what happens if that guy had kind of like a more
power,
not necessarily like sinister side, but power to get out of the friend zone.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I think it's just really, really connected. And
also the other thing that was that this movie, and again, I know that filmmakers, they probably have an understanding of when moments within their film could become viral and be memed, but like what was so important and critical to this movie's success is how it was everywhere on social media because of the moments in the film that could be clipped and put into memes. And Indy is 100% responsible for that. They're all images or moments of her, whether it's like the no, 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 or whatever it might be. Like it's one of these special movies where even if you haven't seen the film, you've already seen a moment or still image from the movie.
Totally. Yeah. It was a shooting star when it came out.
Here's the other really great thing about this movie is that it wasn't just entertaining. There are moments that are truly unsettling, and not just because of the direction of the plot and how like when the more you think about it, it really does like start to feel icky what Bear has done to Nikki, and like that's very true, and that's all very unsettling as well. But like Indy is amazing at some of her body movements in the way that the editing has worked with her body movements, as far as like when she's moving around in the shadows and when she's almost like, yeah, she has been like rewired by this wish, by this odd possession, this influence that she's under, and her body starts to like move backwards and convulse in different ways. And it's really unsettling. Or there's moments where the sound completely, they're lying in bed or it's in the dark and the sound is completely cut out, and you are so afraid that she's just going to scream or scratch him or do something to break that silent tension. And it works so well. Like it's so funny that like year after year, decade after decade, especially within horror movies, that like it's always the most simple staging to scenes like that are the most effective. It's always going to be that way over like, like the fear of a jump scare is always going to be better than the jump scare itself.
Absolutely. And this movie understands that. And I think Curry really understands that. I can't even remember. There's not even really a jump scare. Maybe the car smashing moment. But other than that, and even that, and like he has such good control of you're right, of like knowing how long to keep you on the hook, right? Like how long to dangle the moment in front of you. Because as soon as Bear gets into that car with Sarah, I'm like, oh, Sarah's dead.
Yeah.
But
yeah, as soon as he leaves his house, like with Nikki still sleeping, she's going to find him.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. I mean, it's rare that
is it in your top 5?
It's definitely in my top 5. It's rare that a movie kind of lives up to. It's not necessarily rare that a movie lives up to the hype when it's a genre film, when it's supposed to be like, a quote unquote scary movie. But I do think it's rare when it checks as many boxes as this film does, where you're like, okay, I can see why this would be a fun date night movie. I can see why all the horror purists on Instagram and all the people who have their channels are like, this is awesome. This is, something original, but also that makes me feel nostalgic and reminiscent of a time when like we used to make them a different way. And so like, it's just awesome that it's a movie that, that already has merch and already has people wearing the t-shirts. And like, it's so cool that it did all those things. Again, for such a small budget and with relatively unknown actors. And so it was very worthy of the moment that it had and that it's still having.
Yeah. Go see Obsession if you haven't.
Or fire it up. Like I watched it on Peacock, and it's great because even on streaming, when you open up Peacock and you tab over to the film and you click on it, instead of like it's immediately starting to play the trailer of it, it is the Nikki character. And it's her telling you like, I can't wait for you to come see me. Like there's just like, so it almost feels like, we've talked about this a lot before, but it almost feels like on streaming, there's a DVD quality to the menu before you start it. So it's really fun. And I know it also has a physical media release. And so, if you're a real purist and you want the 4K, I know it's out there. So
if streaming companies are smart, they will start to implement that more and make it more like a DVD. Yes.
Home screen,
like
right?
menu. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's just going to add to the immersion of what you're
Definitely.
about to go watch.
It's really like, picking a movie that you have been anticipating for a while. And even I like HBO is pretty good at this. I think they're really the one streaming service. Netflix I know does as well, but like offering special features on their platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Before we get out of here, those are all the movies we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
For right now, before we get out of here, give me two picks, 2026 releases that are still to come that you are excited for.
I mean, my big one, and it's recency bias, but not in the way that you might think. And I mentioned it earlier at the beginning of the show. But I really now cannot wait for Greta Gerwig's adaptation of The Magician's Nephew. I think
that's 2027.
Is it going to be 2027? It's not the end of this year?
February 2027.
Interesting.
It was pushed. It was pushed.
Okay. I mean, I'm still gonna, it's in the watch list. I'm still going to talk about it though here for a second. Because this is really the one that I kind of can't wait for now. Just finished recording the audiobook of this over on the Explore Corner podcast feed with my good friend Abby. And so her and I were both talking about like, this could really, you want to talk about like bringing a new generation of readers, of moviegoers, of young people into IP. I think that Greta coming off of Barbie picking this series, it's so interesting. And I think a lot of people were kind of like disheartened and a little bummed when the news broke a couple of years ago that like this would be her post Barbie pick. But after reading the story, I think it's going to be nasty. Like I think we're going to see a side of her, when you want to talk about like genre filmmaking. This movie or the book itself really lends itself to like some dark thematic material. And now, of course, C.S. Lewis, famous Christian, and so much Christian imagery, especially in this story where quite literally the character of Diggory is referred to as like the son of Adam, and his running mate Polly is like the daughter of Eve, and they have to go into this like magical garden in this new world of Narnia that Aslan creates to pick an apple that's going to ward off the witch who represents all that's evil in the world. So it's going to be polarizing, but I also think that and just looking at the cast, I mean, you have Ciarán Hinds, who I can only imagine is going to be the voice of Aslan. He has such a good voice. You have Daniel Craig as Uncle Andrew. Meryl Streep is in this movie. Carey Mulligan. Emma Mackey is going to be the witch, the White Witch in this film. And so I'm really excited and anticipating this movie, even if it has been pushed. And that does kind of bum me out because God, this would be a great Christmas release. Like it would just be like, I think Narnia, there's a couple of them, right? Like Harry Potter, there's a few of these movies that like, without being
Christmas coded,
they're so Christmas coded without being like a holiday movie. So that's really too bad that it's not going to be a November or a December release, but hopefully it's one of those early films that kind of like dominates the box office then next year in 2027.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that they chose February, not March, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Yeah, it's also Netflix's first like big, step into theatrical distribution, right? Because it's going to be playing on IMAX screens.
This will be on 3,500 screens, if not more.
Which is one of the good things of it coming out in February, because it will own IMAX, at least in that format.
And honestly, maybe that's part they didn't want to compete with Denny and Dune and some of the other stuff that will be coming out.
It would have been a lot shorter if they stayed on their Thanksgiving date, for sure.
Yeah, that's a good call. Well, then, I mean, the second movie, then, to answer your question, if I can't get Greta and Narnia in 2026, at least I'm getting Jacob Elordi and Ridley Scott.
Dude, this was my
Margaret,
pick. This,
and Margaret
yes.
Qualley. So the Dog Stars is just gonna fucking rip. Like it's gonna be awesome.
I am so stoked for this movie. Jacob Elordi, Margaret Qualley, Josh Brolin, Guy Pearce, Benedict Wong, Allison Janney.
Yeah.
Science fiction story.
Like post-apocalyptic science fiction. Like this is just everything I want. And this is the kind of movie where for somebody like Ridley, who I mean, truly it sounds silly, but like as someone who's been watching movies like critically and with a lot of passion since I was like 14 and movies of Ridley Scott's, I'm like, this needs to be your swan song. Like if this hits, it doesn't need to make $200 million or $300 million. But if people are like, this movie fucking cranks and it's great, and like everyone who watches it sings its praises, then like Ridley, you did it. One last time, you did it. You sick son of a bitch. Now right off into the sunset, and like keep producing alien TV shows if you want to or whatever. Right. But like if he goes out in the director's chair with a successful film that looks as cool as the preview makes this look, then I'll be so happy. I will be so happy.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this. I think the other pick, kind of, again, science fiction story, The End of Oak Street, which is from the director who made It Follows.
Yes.
And the first film since It Follows that he's made. But I just love that we have talked about this. We've been doing this podcast since 2020, and we have talked about it on multiple occasions. Maybe we're finally going to take dinosaurs back.
Right.
We're finally going to destroy the monopoly.
Yes.
That Jurassic and Universal has on the dinosaurs. Because this looks, it's got your girl Anne Hathaway in it, Ewan McGregor. Their neighborhood somehow, transports 65 million years ago, and there are dinosaurs now in the suburbs. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see that. I hope it's a great science fiction spectacle with whimsy and wonder.
Yeah, I mean, you just need people who are going to, and again, it's kind of goes back to the shark discussion that we had too. Like, you need filmmakers, you need VFX artists, you need a studio that's going to just like trust in the fact that there's a vision here, and we're not worried about being compared to a Jurassic Park or a Jurassic World movie, and we're gonna have a lot of fun with this, and like just try to make an awesome action movie that at the same time doesn't take itself too seriously, but also like gives the people what they want.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
It sort of happened, a quick shout out, just because we haven't been on the mics at all this year. It kind of finally happened with Pirates earlier this year with another Amazon original called
The Bluffs. I still haven't finished that.
Priyanka Chopra and Carl Urban, like a really cool pirate movie. That's also one of these just kind of like cat and mouse survivalist game, survivalist movies where you're just out in the you're on like an island in
the Caribbean.
The Caribbean. And it's another like really good time. So it can be done. You can break the mold from these big monopolies that kind of have, whether it's dinosaurs or pirates or whatever it might be. Even going back to the Dink, like you can make your own. You got to quit being afraid. Studios have to quit being afraid of being compared to things that have been more successful in the past.
Yeah. Yep. I'm excited. 2026. I mean, and there's tons more. I mean, come on.
Well, there's tons more. Yeah, and there's tons more that's come out that we haven't even talked about yet either.
Right.
Already. Yeah, it's been a solid year.
We will continue to hopefully bring you more episodes and bring you more movie recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, August, I know that there's more. Like August is, traditionally been like one of our kind of favorite months after January for some of those like hidden gems, kind of it's the dumping ground of summer. And so there's going to be a lot. And even if there isn't, you can bet your bottom dollar that I'm going to come back on here, even if it's a solo pod, and talk about the experience of seeing Fast and the Furious in the theater for the 25th anniversary. I will be back to talk about family and Coronas and all things Toyota Supras.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to go see it on 35, man.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome.
It's going to be really awesome.
Down there in California, they really better actually, like, you better find a theater that's going to go full theme and like be selling Coronas and and like having car meetups in the parking lot before the film or something. Like there needs to be the full experience, I think, for that film.
Hell yeah.
All right, so that's what's to come here on Excuse the Intermission. Of course, you can follow not only our podcast page, but Max and I individually on social media, on Instagram, on Letterboxd, and you'll be able to track what we're watching between shows. And until next time, we will talk to you on ETI, where movies still matter.